Everybody, let's stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag
of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, everybody. Madam Clerk, will you take the roll call?
Councilmember Bill de la Peña.
Present.
Councilmember Angler.
Here.
Councilmember Jones.
Here.
Mayor Pro Tem Adam.
Here.
And Mayor McCoy.
Present. We have no request for continuance and no special presentation, so we announce the public comments, please.
Hearing, excuse me. This is the time and place for public comments. The speaker card is available for those wishing to address the City Council regarding items on the agenda or on a subject within the city's jurisdiction. Speakers for public hearing items shall be called and heard during the public hearing. All remarks should be addressed to the council as a whole, and all documents for City Council on the official record should be presented to the city clerk prior to speaking. Speakers are requested to state their name and community of residence for the record. Under state law, public comment matters may not be considered by the council unless listed on the agenda, but may be referred to the city manager for administrative follow-up. One individual has presented a card, and pursuant to council standards, speakers are allowed 3 minutes. The yellow light displays when you have 1 minute remaining.
Thank you very much. Well, we only have one public speaker tonight, and that is Robin Britt. So, Robin, welcome. Thanks for coming down. You told me a little bit about what you're going to share, and I'm looking forward to the rest of the council hearing it. Let's see. Try it now.
Hello? Okay. I'm Robin Britt, the Executive Director of Community Conscience in Thousand Oaks, and I'm here to give you some updates about our nonprofit. For those of you that are not extremely aware of us, we have a building on Hillcrest and Moore Park where we provide free rent to 13 nonprofit organizations in one location, which ensures they can keep their doors open and provide services to over 50,000 people per year at our building. In September, we removed the old roof and replaced it with a new one that has a 20-year warranty. And we also replaced 14 air conditioning units with new energy-efficient ones. So now we're going to do some fundraising. Our Mardi Gras Ball fundraiser will be held on Saturday, February 29th, 2020. That's our signature fundraising event, and King and Queen nominations are open. If you'd like to nominate a person in the community who has done a lot to impact the community, you could go to our website, communityconscience.org, and click on News to find the link to nominate people. The deadline for nominations is November 8th. I was at the homeless symposium that you had recently, and I just want to say the amount of work that went into that and thought, it was extremely well done. It did a fantastic job of explaining all the dynamics of this complex problem. Community Conscience has an interest in this problem, still housing a nonprofit that has the only shower, laundry facility, and a place for them to come and get their lunch and some coffee in the morning. And we really appreciate all the work that you did. And I wanted to say a big heartfelt thank you.
Well, that's right back at you, Robin. Thank you for all you do. Bless you, dear. Well, I believe that concludes our public comments. Do we have a motion for the consent calendar? Councilmember Bill de la Peña.
Move to approve the consent calendar.
Madam Clerk, will you prepare the vote?
The motion carries 5-0, and I have an ordinance title for you. Ordinance amending sections of Municipal Code adjusting campaign contribution limits to reflect changes in California Consumer Price Index, CPI, and setting reevaluation timeframe for base limit.
Thank you. That brings us to item 8A, and we have with us for this public hearing the Deputy City Clerk and, Cliff Finley, the Deputy Public Works Director. But Madam Clerk, will you announce the public hearing?
Hearing advertised as required by law is opened to consider Agenda Item 8A regarding Thousand Oaks Transit Program modifications. A speaker card is available for those wishing to address the City Council regarding this public hearing. All documents for City Council and the official record should be presented to the City Clerk prior to speaking. Speakers are requested to state their name and community of residence for the record. 2 individuals have presented speaker cards, and pursuant to council standards, each speaker will have 5 minutes. The yellow light displays when you have 1 minute remaining.
There we go. All fixed.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor, members of the council. The item before you tonight is a continuation of an item that we originally brought to council in May of 2019 related to a series of changes that we were requesting for the transit program. Prior to actual implementation of these changes, it was necessary to comply with our own regulations and state regulations to do outreach prior to bringing this item back to you. The slide before you shows the extent of the public outreach that was done in support of this project. Most notably, we did an extensive survey in both English and Spanish of our transit users, with approximately 75% of the respondents noting the importance of public transit to their daily commute, and also an indication of the level of support for the various increases and changes. Just a reminder of how transit is funded in this community. Approximately 75% of the cost is paid for with a combination of state and federal money, with the balance paid for by various competitive grants, the fares that are generated, and local revenues. Transit has seen a significant increase in its operating costs in the last few years, particularly under our contract costs, and as noted in the most recent contract, which was approved earlier this year. We've seen nearly a 50% increase in our operational costs for contract costs over the last 7 years, without a corresponding increase in fares. To that end, the TDA funds, which provide the bulk of our funding, require a minimum fare box contribution from the users of the service. And then for the last budget cycle, fiscal year 17, 18, and 18, 19, we failed to meet that minimum threshold, and as a result, the city had to contribute close to $500,000 in local funds to offset the fare box shortfall. And because of the increased contract costs, we are projecting that's going to increase to nearly $900,000 over the next 2 fiscal years without any changes. We're proposing a series of changes starting with fares. The last fare increase was approved in 2011, and as noted, our contract costs have gone up 50% since that time. The modifications as suggested have the potential to generate an additional $115,000 towards fares on an annual basis. Staff is proposing a 50-cent increase to the regular fare, but an actual decrease in the senior disabled fare and corresponding increases in our passes. As has been our tradition, transfers, children, and now college students will continue to be able to use the service for free, and students in grades 1 through 12 will benefit from a pass that has been time restricted, will now be available to them at all times. Additionally, we want to introduce 2 new pass programs, one geared specifically towards low-income seniors and students, particularly those that may be homeless at that time. That's where we get the bulk of our requests, and we will be moving forward with that program early in 2020, as well as a new school-age summer bus pass program to complement the summer beach bus program that we already offer. In addition to fares, we also are looking to do some minor trimming of our service hours. Our service hours were extended in 2012. Saturday service was added as well. Note a chart of the ridership, and notice the times between 5 a.m. and 6 a.m. and 7 p.m. and 8 p.m. are our least used ridership. Noting between 5 and 6, that's the equivalent of approximately 2 people per route per hour. Similarly, dial-a-ride service also has very low ridership the first and last hour of the service day, with the 5 to 6 a.m. Hours representing less than 1 person per hour per day. So we're proposing discontinuing of service between 5 and 6 a.m., 7 and 8 p.m., continuing to provide full weekend service, but to require advanced reservations. This should result in approximately $350,000 in operational savings, as well as approximately $70,000 reduction in the shortfall. We're also proposing some route changes to improve connectivity and also switching routes from being loop to bidirectional, which should speed service and also improve connections with intercity services. And then lastly, some minor policy changes would be the discontinuing issuing of ID cards. We're the only agency in the county that does so. It's an inconvenience to user, and it's no longer necessary. And some switching to our reservations policies to make them more convenient and less costly for the riders. And lastly, as part of the direction we received in May, we're still researching the potential for advertising on transit vehicles and at facilities. Noting these proposed changes, we would see an approximate $95,000 reduction in the fare box shortfall for the current fiscal year and close to a $270,000 reduction in the fare box shortfall for the following fiscal year, provided that we implement all of these policies. Our next steps will be to, if council approves the changes and to make those changes effective on January 6th, we'll conduct additional public outreach and bring the advertising proposal back to City Council in early 2020 for consideration. And with that, staff is available for any questions.
Questions of the council? There are no questions. What's that?
I did have a quick question. The proposed red route or the changes to it, what exactly are the changes on that particular route?
So currently right now, both the red and blue routes do a loop, one clockwise and one counterclockwise, covering a vast part of Thousand Oaks Boulevard and Hillcrest. And the proposal specific to the red route would make that route almost exclusive to Thousand Oaks Boulevard in both directions, essentially between the Oaks Mall and Westlake Village. The thought process here is that it would greatly speed up the times that the bus is coming in both directions and would allow for faster connections to other services. This is one of the 5 routes that will meet up at the Oaks Mall, and all those 4 routes will depart the Oaks at the same time on the hour every hour.
So that would enable the high school kids at Westlake High School to just walk over to the intersection if they wanted to go to the mall?
That's correct.
Okay, but nothing to the teen center yet?
Not without one transfer.
Okay, thank you.
Mayor Pro Tem Adam?
I thought I'd make a motion.
Well, we still have some public speakers.
Oh, we do?
Yep.
Then I won't.
Councilmember Engler?
I'm curious on the advertising revenue that you're looking at. Are you looking at internal to the bus, external to the bus stops? What are you looking at as far as the package?
The number that was provided is comparable for those agencies that do both outside vehicle advertising as well as advertising at transit facilities and stops. So that would include, for instance, the shelter stops. We can customize that package depending on council's preferences, but the maximum amount of funding that we would receive would be from outside advertising. Very little income is generated from inside advertising, particularly with the ridership that we have.
Thank you.
Well, that'll bring us to the public speakers, and before, do we need to announce that? No, we're good. I did want to say we have one written statement card from Kiana, and it's very nice sometimes when people write very kind cards, and I just want to say thank you, Kiana. We'll pass it down the line. Now we come to public speakers. Our first for this item will be Miguel Robles. Come on up, Miguel. And then following that will be Manuel Lopez, and then Michael Goldsmith. And those are our 3 public speakers. Good evening, Miguel. How are you?
Good morning. Good afternoon.
That's all right, man.
So I just wanted to say that I myself use the Route 2 in the morning from I get it at 7:30 at in the streets Avenida de los Árboles and Olivo. So I would wish if you could like maybe leave that station the same all the way to Los Cerritos Middle School.
At the end, we're going to have someone come and talk with you. We make sure you don't go until we finish with this, and we can have someone come talk to you.
Okay.
All right, buddy. Thank you. And thanks for not using all the time. All right. And now we have Manuel Lopez. Hello.
Hi. So I would say to not change the route for like the exact same time that what Miguel said, because like it might be like something important, like for example, go to the school or like go to the hospital or like to have like an important meeting. So like it. Like,
Can you do me a favor? Just speak a little closer to the microphone, because
Okay.
I'm old and hard of hearing. Older. All right, buddy.
So I start all over.
Yeah.
Okay, so basically, I would say that that you shouldn't change the time. What me for example, it might be important like to go to school or like to go to a hospital or like to have an important meeting. And yeah, that's all.
Well, thank you.
Okay.
Thanks for taking time to share with us. Wait. Hang on just a second. The council member has a question for you if you want to take it. Come on back. She's really nice, so don't get worried. Council member?
Thank you, Mayor McCoy. Manuel, at what time do you take the bus in the morning?
I take it at 7:30 to go to school.
Okay, and you were at Avenida de los Árboles and Calle Olivo? And you would be leaving at 7:31, right? So that time hasn't changed, has it? I mean, that's currently the time, but what is the time that it is being proposed, maybe, Mr. Hauser? So is it the morning and the afternoons that you're having an issue with? Yes? Or just the mornings?
He was speaking on behalf of his friend, and we're not wanting to cut some of the hours. He wanted to make sure the routes continue.
Yeah, okay.
Council member, that route will continue. There will be a slight adjustment. He will have to get to the bus a few minutes earlier than he currently is, but the route itself will remain intact.
Oh, okay. How many minutes earlier?
Approximately 10.
Okay, so 10 minutes earlier.
That means you
All
have to
right.
go to bed 10 minutes earlier.
All right. Okay, well then, thank you very much.
All right, and then our last public speaker will be Michael Goldsmith. Michael, are you here? Hello, sir.
I am new to the council meetings, and I was just curious, what's going on with the Canaan shuttle? Because only having 2 times in the morning to go out is a little ridiculous. Especially when you need to try and catch the other buses. And also, the Saturday service, I just moved to Oak Park, and I was planning on using the Canaan shuttle on Saturdays at least, but now I'm stuck inside, can't go anywhere.
Would you like to answer his question?
Mr. Mayor and council members, yes, I would remind the council the Canaan Shuttle is actually a service that we operate on behalf of the county of Ventura, and so we merely respond to their requests. I will be happy to speak to the resident regarding some of the reasons why the county made the change in service.
Okay. Mr. Goldsmith, at the conclusion of this, he'll come and talk with you.
Okay, great.
Thank you, sir.
And also one other thing.
All right.
As far as like Thousand Oaks Style of Ride, why can't they accept credit cards?
You want to address that later too? Or
In general terms, we are working towards that collectively as a county with all the transit agencies. It is rather an expensive proposition and does add to the cost to provide the service.
Okay.
Mr. Goldsmith, Councilmember Bill De La Pena wanted to ask you a question, if it's okay.
Sure.
Oh, you had a question for staff. I'm sorry. Go ahead. It's not for you, but you can listen.
I have a question for staff. Is there a way to connect the Canaan shuttle to the new red route?
Not as currently proposed. It would add significantly to the length. We could not keep that hour time that we're trying to achieve. We would also then have to extend our responsibility for ADA service all the way to Agoura Hills.
Thank you.
All right. Is there anything else, Mr. Goldsmith?
No, that'll do it. Thank you.
Thanks for coming down. Well, that concludes our public speakers. Staff, you responded. Is there anything else you'd like to add? Good. All right, we close the hearing. And council discussion? Or would someone like to make a motion? Mayor Pro Tem Adam.
Thank you, Mayor. Hey, folks, I'm glad you came down. It's obvious that people depend on our transit system. Two young men and this gentleman here, so it's good that you're here tonight. And I'm glad that you brought this to us. There's a trend here in the shortfall. It has to be addressed. This is the definition of fiscal conservatism, which we pride ourselves on, and you're taking certain measures to address that shortfall. I should mention, and I think I'm correct here, normal fares might go up incrementally, but seniors and ADA riders' fares will actually decrease. They will decrease. And how about kids? They ride for a discount too, don't they?
Children 5 and under ride for free right now. We don't have a fare specific, but noting that students ride for half of what the regular fare is.
Right. Okay. Very good. So, these are measures that need to be taken. The only alternative is to finance it through the general fund, which I would be very reluctant to do, because then you're pulling from other services. So, with that, I will in fact move that we approve 8A. This evening, and I appreciate you bringing the situation to us.
Madam Clerk, will you prepare the vote, please? Staff, if you'd hold on just a second. Fellas?
The motion,
Mike, hang on. Go ahead. Sorry.
that motion carries 5-0.
Thank you very much.
Just one
Councilmember?
quick thing that I forgot to ask is, can we get in touch with CLU regarding student rides and see how we can improve that route that is being offered for free?
Okay.
It's being used more than it has in the past, but not as much as it could.
Councilmember, certainly we are in contact with staff all the time. And as you're aware, we actually have two routes servicing CLU, and we are seeing great benefit in ridership from the free college ride program. That includes students at CLU.
But not to the potential that it has.
Agreed.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Councilmember. And that brings us to item 9, and allocation approval, pre-screening initiation of general plan amendment and request for concurrent processing for a 37-unit residential project. We have Mark Town, our Community Development Director, but I wanted to share with the folks who have signed up to speak on this. We have got a number of speakers, so you've probably prepared your thoughts, but when we have this many speakers, we reduce it to 2 minutes, so try to collect your thoughts between now and when your time to speak is. And the most important pertinent facts you want us to know, put those in a 2-minute segment if you would. Just, we're listening, but bring it down from 3 to 2 if you would. All right.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor and members of the City Council. Before I start my presentation, I would like to introduce the gentleman to my left, Ian Holt, a recent addition to the Community Development Department, a senior planner, case planner on this project. Ian brings over 23 years of planning experience to the City of Thousand Oaks, having worked previously at the City of Ventura, Oceanside, and the City of Santa Cruz. He has a broad background in planning, including general plan updates, which is certainly relevant. So, with that, let's proceed. So the item before you tonight really involves, first and foremost, a request to allocate 25 units of Measure residential capacity to a property located at 3801 Maurice Drive. That's the first request in this image. And should you opt to allocate the units, then steps 2 and 3 kick in, 2 being initiation of an amendment to the general plan, land use designation from commercial to medium density residential, and then finally allowing concurrent processing of entitlements and legislative requests. So this is an image showing the broad area that we're talking about. The site is located on the west side of Reno Road between Kimber and Lynn in Newbury Park. This is a more detailed aerial photo of the site. The site is composed of 1.67 acres. It's the flat area identified with the red border here. Obviously, it's at the northwest corner of Maurice Drive and Reno Road. You can see that it is adjacent to the Newbury Park Place shopping center and also adjacent to a flood control area to the west and then residential directly to the south and to the east. This is a view of the site as it appears today, looking northwest. It's the vacant field in the foreground. Reno Road is the street proceeding to the upper right, and Maurice is the street proceeding to the upper left. The shopping center extends obviously to the north, and you're looking in this image at the back of the Albertsons market. In terms of background, as you're aware, this item has been before you twice earlier this year. In February, you considered a concept for a high-density project that had a total of 47 units proposed. At the end of that discussion, the direction was to seek additional outreach, additional public input. In May, you considered a similar project that also proposed 47 units. And after discussing it and hearing from residents and others, you gave direction to the applicant to use or consider a medium-density residential land use designation instead of high-density residential. Medium density maximum being 15 units per acre under that category. And then since May, the applicant has conducted additional outreach and, as I will describe momentarily, has revised the design. So this is an image from our general plan land use map, and this is the current pattern of land uses in the area. As you can see, the subject property is red. That denotes that it's commercial. Obviously, it's still part of that commercial center technically. It is surrounded by a variety of residential land uses, you can see, which vary from medium density to the west and to the south, and then low density immediately to the east, and a little pocket of very low density further to the south. Over here to the west, you can see Cypress Elementary School. Cypress Park is this green area here, and then all of this green to the south is the Potrero Ridge open space. Should also note that the zoning for the property is neighborhood shopping center today. So this is the proposed land use designation that you are considering tonight. It is no longer proposed to be high density, it's proposed to be medium density, and obviously that matches the adjacent land use densities here to the west and immediately to the south on both sides of Maurice Drive, closest to the subject property. Again, the first question before you tonight is whether 25 units of residential capacity should be allocated to the property. This is required, it's necessary because the property, again, it's commercial today, so for it to allow residential, you have to move residential capacity from our citywide pool to this site to basically support that change in land use and ensure that we do not exceed the capacity for residential uses that were established through Measure E in 1996. Should you opt to allocate the units, then there would be a little bit over 1,100 units remaining in the citywide pool, and that reflects your recent action with regard to the Daylight Project at East Kelly and Newberry Road 2 weeks ago. So this is an image that shows the basis for the proposed unit count. This is important because 25 units are proposed from the Measure E pool, and that's a function of the medium density residential. If you look at the second row there, the basis for the 25 units is the area, 1.67 acres, times the maximum density in that medium density range, which is 4.6 to 15 units per net acre. That equates to 25 units. So that's your base density. Now, the applicant is including several affordable units, and those units, based on the number and the income category, qualify them for a density bonus under state and local law. This is something that the applicant is entitled to. It is a legal mandate that the city has to adhere to if this goes forward. And the number of units and the income category equate to a 35% density bonus for this particular project. So 25 units times 35% gives you 9 units. Those are the density bonus units. And what that is really, the underlying principle of it, what it's really doing is serving as an incentive, and this started at the state level, an incentive to provide housing in all income categories. And then finally, the applicant has requested through a development agreement, which is required as part of a Measure E allocation, that the project include 3 additional units. We have discussed this with the applicants, and of those 3 units, 2 would be restricted to moderate income unit, and that would leave them with 1 additional market rate unit. The sum of those 3 numbers is how we get to the 37 units that are proposed tonight. The medium density residential land use, plus the density bonus, plus the 3 units that are requested through the development agreement. Okay, now we're going to shift gears a little bit and talk about the actual design of the project. This aerial photo shows the approximate footprints for the buildings. So this larger building in the back, you can see the cursor, that is the apartment building, basically abutting the Albertsons Market, which is right here. And then the townhome units are allocated among these 4 buildings, 1 facing Reno Road and 3 alongside Maurice Drive. Taking a little bit deeper dive, the design concept for this includes 10 townhomes. That's unchanged since the prior design that you saw in May. And so that includes 2 townhome units along Arena Road, 2 townhome units here, and then 2 buildings with 3 each, 3 here, 3 there, so you get a total of 10. That has not changed. What has changed is that the applicant has removed 10 apartments from the apartment building at the rear of the project. So before, the apartments were 37 in count, and now they are 27 in count. Now, we are talking about a mix of 2- and 3-story buildings. Building D over here alongside Reno is a 2-story building. Building C is a hybrid of 2 stories here closest to Reno, and then a 3-story, I should say, right here. And then buildings B or building B, both of them, are 3 stories in height, and the apartments remain at 3 stories in height as well. So now we are going to go through the 4 fundamental criteria that we use to evaluate projects for measure reallocation, and they include the suitability of the site for the proposed residential use, the quality of design and in all its facets, provision of affordable units, and more broadly speaking, community benefits. So in terms of suitability of the site, to staff, it appears to be a good place for residential. It's adjacent to residential areas, as I've already mentioned. We have this floodplain to the west with mature vegetation screening the site from the west. It is also clearly within walking distance to commercial, but also to parks, to Cypress Park that I mentioned, to the Petro Ridge open space. There's a trailhead just down Reno Road with access to public trails, and then there's a bus stop adjacent to the commercial center to the north. So those are all pluses in terms of potential residential use. The other factor that is relevant is that a preliminary analysis of traffic indicated that a residential project would generate significantly less traffic than a commercial project on the same site. In fact, it would be about 25% of the traffic generated from a commercial use. And so that's relevant as well. In terms of the design quality, first I wanted to review the site plan. The city has a space allocation formula, we call it, in terms of the amount of building coverage, paved area, landscaping, and open space. And this proposed site plan meets those guidelines. And so we feel that in that respect, it's an appropriate site plan and layout. The plan does have 2 common pool and playground areas, one here next to Reno Road, and then a pool complex over here on the west side. Those would be open to or available to both townhome owners and apartment residents. The parking supply exceeds the requirements for the site by 6 spaces. 93 or 63 are required and 69 are provided. And then finally, you may recall that before, the driveway access to the apartments was along this private road. This is the commercial driveway to the back of the shopping center over here on the right side. And before, that driveway to the apartments was essentially laying over that alignment. And there were concerns about vehicular conflicts, particularly with trucks making deliveries. So that driveway has been moved, if I can get the pointer working here, from that private road over here. So now the driveway access to the apartments, the reduced number of apartments, and the townhomes is shared here off of Maurice Drive to avoid those conflicts. Now, as we talk about the apartments in terms of design quality, we think this is a good starting point for the architectural design. Again, this is very early in the process, but the design has a lot of variation in wall planes. There are balconies and patios throughout the project, including balconies here at the apartment building. A nice variation in design and materials and articulation. The building in the upper left would be the view of the apartments without the without the townhomes in the foreground, from Reno Road. The image in the upper right is looking the other way from that driveway I just mentioned. That's Albertsons on the left, so you're looking toward Reno. And then the bottom elevation is the south elevation, which would be the side toward Maurice, although this is a little deceiving because, as you'll see in a moment, a lot of that building is screened by the townhomes. This is a cross-section of the apartment building. The apartment building height has been reduced slightly from 35 feet to 32 feet 9 inches, as shown in this exhibit. You can see it's still 3 stories, but the parking area below the structure is slightly sunken below grade to ensure that the height of the building is consistent with the Albertsons. But it's still 3 stories in design. Now we shift gears to the townhomes. As I mentioned before, they're a combination of 2 and 3 stories. Again, with respect to the 3-story townhomes, the maximum height was reduced from 35 feet in the prior design to 32 feet in the current design. We think the architecture, as I mentioned before, is good. It's compatible with the area. And then also I should note that, as described in the staff report, there is a front yard setback reduction that would be required alongside Reno Road, but that is actually allowed under state law through the density bonus incentive program. Applicants that opt for a density bonus approach are allowed a certain number of incentives depending on the number of units that they include. In this case, they would be entitled to 2 incentives, one of which would be that setback. This image shows the unit mix that we're talking about tonight. So there would be 11 one-bedroom apartments, 16 two-bedroom apartments, and then 10 townhomes, all of which are proposed to be 3 bedrooms in size. So another criterion that we look at is regional housing needs assessment. This is essentially a state-mandated program that involves housing targets that are given to all cities and counties in the state by total number and by income category. The proposal before you tonight includes 3 very low-income units and 2 moderate-income units, which equates to 20% of the base density of 25 units. And just to keep this, or make this more real, for a 2-person household, this is based on the most recent numbers, for somebody to qualify for a very low-income unit, that would be somebody that would earn up to almost $42,000 a year. I'm sorry, for a 2-person household. And that is an income that, according to the state's numbers, is typical for food servers, bank tellers, child care workers, home health care aides, and many others. But that's what we mean by very low income. Somebody could earn up to $41,850 and still qualify as part of a 2-person household. A 2-person household in the moderate income limit, which are the other 2 units, that couple could earn up to almost $94,000, which is typical for basically all of our teachers, elementary and secondary included. The very low income units would help to meet part of the city's outstanding need in this category as dictated by the state. That would decrease from 51 to 48 units if this goes forward. So community benefits. There are 3 broad community benefits. As I mentioned before, residential use here, I think, it appears to be a more appropriate use than a small commercial center or a small strip mall of sorts, given the fact that there is residential on 3 sides. It would provide, obviously, additional market rate housing as well as affordable options for a limited number of residents. And that, as I mentioned before, would comprise of 5 affordable units, which is 20% of the base density. And that's high. Most of the projects that you see are in the 11% range, so it's almost twice the percentage. So we're almost to the end. This is a summary of the prior concept and the current concept. So what I'd like to do is just go through this because it is a summary of what I just described. But in terms of number of units from left to right, the previous concept had 47 units proposed. Now it's 37. Obviously, a 10-unit reduction, that's about 20% fewer units. As I mentioned, the townhome units have gone from 35 to 32 units for the three-story models, a three-foot reduction. The apartments have been reduced by 2 feet 3 inches in height. The driveway, as I mentioned, has been relocated. And the affordable mix, it was initially proposed at 5 moderate, and now it's 3 very low and 2 moderate, which better meets local housing needs and state requirements. The project, in terms of the affordable component, is also consistent with City Council goals, including one of City Council's top 10 priorities for the current fiscal year. Now, as I mentioned before, this is still early in the process. This is the pre-screen step that we're discussing tonight. This is the first of potentially 6 steps. If this goes forward, the next step would be a pre-application meeting with staff, and then a formal application, which would be a batch of entitlements and legislative actions, the zone change, general plan change, et cetera, the actual design for the buildings. That would be evaluated. An environmental assessment would be done, and then that would all be taken to the Planning Commission for review and recommendation, and then finally back to you for final action. So tonight's action, should you opt to allocate the units and initiate the GPA and the concurrent processing, does not denote final approval of the project, A, and then B, the project very likely will continue to evolve and become refined through this process. This is a step in the process intended to give you an early look at a concept and ensure that the basic concept is appropriate and worthy of further analysis and refinement. So with that, staff is recommending that you allocate 25 units of Measure E capacity to the proposed project. One of the caveats is that the applicant is required to submit their formal application within 12 months. And then if you do have to do that, then the second and third items again become relevant, and that is to initiate the general plan amendment to change the use from commercial to medium density residential and allow that concurrent processing. And with that, I would be happy to answer any questions. And again, Mr. Holt to my left is also available for questions, as is Kathy Naum to my left, our local traffic expert. Thank you.
Questions from the council? Councilmember Engler?
Thank you, Mayor. Just a quick question. You were mentioning the traffic issues and whatnot. Currently, the property is zoned for commercial. Is that correct?
That's correct.
So the commercial then would have a higher traffic use than the residential, and is that taken into account surge, during the peak hours when everybody would leave for work and that sort of thing? Is that still representative of the 25% less usage?
Yes, both in terms of total vehicle trips per day and the PM peak hour.
Thank you.
Councilmember Bill de la Pena?
Thank you, Mayor McCoy. Mr. Town, on traffic again, commercial would cause more traffic. It's been proven to be the case. What is the percentage in terms of the reduction a residential development would bring?
Well, a commercial use would use about 4 times, or generate about 4 times the amount of traffic. So residential is about 25% of commercial traffic generation.
In general, not talking about any specific project. That's just generally speaking.
That was based on a conceptual commercial project on site of 25,000 square feet for the subject site, which is typical for that size property given parking and other constraints.
And are you free to speak about RENA numbers?
Of course.
Okay, because I know they haven't been approved, but what is currently proposed for Thousand Oaks' share?
Well, the number has not been approved. And we have seen some initial numbers that are north of 3,000, but we won't know the final number until probably January. The State Department of Housing and Community Development has issued their final number for the SCAG region, which is about 1.34 million units, which is significantly higher than our last RENA cycle. But we don't know yet exactly how those units are going to be allocated among cities and counties. So the number I just mentioned was a preliminary number, and we are now waiting to find out the final allocation.
That number still had a pre-preliminary number, though, correct?
There was a very early number that
Was almost twice as much.
It was very high, and so that has come down, but it is still a significant number.
Thank you.
Mayor Pro Tem Adam.
Thank you, Mayor. Yeah, I mean, as far as traffic, your projections show that there'd be a 75% reduction in traffic from a commercial to a residential project. I think I have here over 1,000 car trips commercial versus a couple of hundred residential. So that's pretty significant, I would think, right?
Yes,
Yeah.
it is.
Okay. Hey, on that density bonus business, the applicant's applying for a density bonus. It's a legitimate way to reward someone who is willing to put in affordable housing. This is not some sort of loophole or gimmick the applicant is using, is it not?
No, the density bonus program is essentially designed to both incentivize the inclusion of affordable units and also to offset part of the loss of revenue from the affordable units. But it is not only allowed under state law. If an applicant applies for it, the city is obligated to include it in the proposal. So we can't deny that.
Yeah, it is state law. And finally, we met in May on this project, and we elicited some concerns about it. And now here we are in October for the third time. Would you say that those concerns that actually staff and city council have been addressed in this third iteration?
I would say yes, because the number of units has been significantly reduced. From 47 to 37. The driveway has been relocated. The three-story building elements for both the townhomes and the apartments have been reduced by about 2 to 3 feet. And the affordable mix is more relevant to the city's needs. We don't need currently moderate income units to satisfy RENA. The need that we have today is for very low and low income units. So the original 5 moderate income units didn't really meet our current needs. The 3 very low units today do. Now, having said that, the trigger for these is issuance of time of building permit. So depending on the project's time frame and schedule, that's when we will actually be credited with those units. But typically, very low and low income units are much more difficult to provide, for a city to provide, than moderate income units.
Yes. All right, thank you, Mr. Tan. Appreciate that summary. Thank you.
Councilmember Engler.
Thank you, Mayor. Just a question on the housing that is going to be below market rate. Where is it located within and this might be a better question for the applicant, but where is it located within the proposed development? Is it some of the townhouses, is it all in the apartment units, or where do they propose to put those?
The exact location is not determined yet, but typically affordable units are part of the apartment mix. They are easier to manage from a long-term perspective than ownership units. And so the spatial location has not been defined yet, but typically those are part of the apartment mix.
Thank you.
Mr. Town, can you share with the folks here tonight that have taken time out of their busy schedule to come down and express their concerns over this project, that if tonight these units are allocated and the significance of the influence they've had on the council thus far to the completion of a project, how this is very much in the infancy stage? Can you reiterate that again so folks can see that this is important?
So if you allow this project to go forward tonight, then it goes to what we call a pre-application step. We meet with
at each of these levels. Share with the folks present, if you would, what input they would have.
Yeah, my apology. So the pre-application is a meeting between staff and the applicant to identify concerns, if there's any technical issues with the project, and also to ensure that it reflects any direction from City Council with regard to refinements. That then becomes a formal application package, and that is available for public review. The pre-app is available for public review as well. These documents are all here at City Hall, and that application then becomes the basis for the environmental review process. So we would probably be doing for this type of a project a mitigated negative declaration, which is an environmental document that takes significant
and that's where you
time.
would address the traffic issues and
Correct.
The like.
That's where traffic and everything else will be analyzed at a much greater detail. That draft document is circulated for public comments. We respond to each and every one of those comments in the final environmental document. That then goes to the Planning Commission. Obviously, the public has an additional opportunity at the Planning Commission meeting to provide input, and then the Commission may offer further refinements, and then we'll send it to City Council, and then obviously you have the final say and can make changes at that point. But typically, the majority of changes are made prior to it becoming or coming to you for the final action.
Thank you, Mr. Town. At this time, we're going to have the applicant share, and Tom Cohen, I think you're up. Is that right?
Yes.
Hi, Mr. Cohen. And then following Mr. Cohen, are we going to do the 5-minute rebuttal, or we do the public speakers first? Okay. I got it. You're all set.
Thank you. Good evening, Mayor McCoy, council members. My name is Tom Cohen. Live here in Thousand Oaks, and I'm here on behalf of Albert Cohen and his family. And thank you for the opportunity to address you once again concerning this project. My goal here is to be brief. And first, I must extend thank yous to Mark Town, Ian Holt, and the rest of the staff for their patience and their very helpful insights as we have been moving along here. We had some missteps along the way, and I think we've learned some important lessons. Our outreach was not done well, and at the last hearing, we failed to make any changes to the project. And we were wrong to do that when it was clear that the neighbors had concerns. Since then, we've heard both the neighbors and the city council loud and clear. And since we have since conducted several outreach meetings with the neighbors. Mr. Gallagher, he led those discussions, and he's here to talk to you about those meetings if you would like to ask him some questions. As a result of those outreach meetings and the direction given by the city council at its May 21st meeting, we've made some significant changes that you've heard. I'm going to outline them once again. First, was quite clear from our meetings with the neighbors that they don't want apartments. However, we are following clear direction given by the city to provide affordable housing opportunities, and we're doing that in a scaled-down version of what was originally proposed. So we've reduced the number of apartment units from 37 to 27, thus reducing the overall density by 21%. We're providing you now a medium density project instead of the high density that we originally proposed. We've removed access into the apartment building from the service road servicing the Albertson Center to address the safety concerns that we heard. And we've introduced new architectural detail, reduced the height of the buildings, and thereby further reducing or minimizing the massing of the buildings. As you've heard, we are providing 5 affordable apartment units, 3 very low, and 2 moderate, helping the city meet an important state requirement to satisfy its required RHNA numbers. And we know that those numbers are only going up, so anything we can do to help that, we want to do that. We've also increased setback distances for the units facing Maurice Drive, and we've exceeded the parking requirements as noted in the staff's report. And we know that this project is very early, in the very early stages, and if you provide these preliminary applications, we've got a lot more to do in terms of the project's evaluation, its environmental review, public hearings before both the Planning Commission and the City Council. We hope that these changes we have put forward are sufficient to award the allocations. We will continue to work with the neighbors along the way with the hope that we allay concerns and garner support. So with that, I will conclude my presentation and available to answer any questions.
Thank you, Mr. Cohen. Councilmember Bill de la Peña.
Thank you, Mayor McCoy. Good evening, Mr. Cohen. I had a question regarding the townhouses. You're proposing 10 townhouses. We're not, that's part of the zoning, I guess, but really why we're here tonight is for the allocation of units, apartment units from Measure E. That's, would that include the townhouses then as well? The townhouses are part of Measure E as well?
Yes.
Yeah, okay. So what, as it's currently proposed, the townhouses would be market rate. What would be the sales value of those homes?
That would be tough to say because those are 2 to 3 years out, but I imagine that we really don't have an idea. They're about 1,800 square feet to 2,000 square feet in size. They're 3-bedroom units. I haven't done any kind of a market analysis, but I'm guessing those are 6s, 7s, something like that.
At least.
At least.
Thank you.
Thank you, Councilmember. Councilmember Engler.
Hello, Mr. Cohen. During the presentation by staff, they mentioned that the setbacks were going to be reduced somewhat on the Reno Road side. Have you done any studies or any projections as to what that's going to do to any visibility for traffic leaving from Maurice onto Reno? Is there going to be any impact there?
We don't believe so, but that will be studied for certain when we get further into the details of these plans. But we cannot have any. We cannot create any safety concerns at that corner. It's too important, and we have obviously heard that that's very important to the residents. So no, yes, we will be looking at that, but I can assure you that we will, and with staff, they will make sure that we're not having any impact on sightlines.
Any other questions from council? All right. At this moment, we're going to have the public speakers. So again, 2 minutes, and we're really looking for some insights from y'all. We're grateful you're here. As you heard from the staff, it's a long process. This isn't the final situation as a city. We're looking at it, and we're so grateful you're here. So with that being said, please stay within the 2-minute realm, and we're going to begin with Jared Freilich. Yes, sir.
Thank you, council members. This project still doesn't work for the neighborhood. I appreciate Mr. Cohen's efforts to shoehorn in 37 units instead of 47, but what he's taken is a medium density proposal with that 25 unit number and really turned it into something else that's probably more correctly called high density, because when you add those 12 bonus density units, you don't have medium density anymore. You now are back into the realm of high density. And we can call it a benefit or an incentive, and that's fine, I get that. But at the end of the day, the people who are going to be dealing with that traffic and that additional density in their neighborhood is us. And it's not going to be medium density, which was the will and of the city council last time, as well as the voice of the community last time. It still is the voice, and we've been asking for the same thing. Make it match the surrounding neighborhoods. Okay? It's that simple. And I appreciate that Mr. Cohen is doing all these great things, but without that, he's not going to have my support. And I urge you to not go with that plan either. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Joseph Klemowicz, you're next, and then followed by Janelle Klus. Good evening, sir.
Good evening, Mayor. My name is Joseph Klemowicz. I live on Los Vientos Drive, which is about maybe a mile from Albertsons. I disagree with the project as it's promoted. The traffic alone is going to affect me, just going down Borchard in the mornings and in the evenings. Thousand Oaks has portrayed itself as a low-density community, as a limited growth community. And this seems to be, at least in the past it has. But with this project here, I think it'll change the whole basis, the whole nature of the community. Newbury Park, Thousand Oaks. Anyway, I'm very much opposed to the program.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Janelle Klus, followed by Gary Pugh. Good evening.
Good evening. My name is Janelle Kless, and I have lived in
I'm sorry I got your name wrong. I'm
That's
sorry.
okay, no problem.
All right.
I've lived in Newbury Park for 46 years. I'm one of the co-presidents of the Twin Oaks Homeowners Association. We consist of about 110 single-family homes and are adjacent to this project. Our board members walked our neighborhood asking our neighbors how they felt about the project, and we took a petition asking for their signatures. We collected 101 signatures from our residents. Many of the residents were surprised to hear that Mr. Cohen was still proposing a total of 37 units. After the previous council meeting, they were under the impression that there would be 25 units total. That would be medium density. This is not considered medium density anymore. Most of the Twin Oaks residents are afraid of not happy about the increase in traffic and noise and parking. Our streets are private, and we are concerned that the overflow parking will be directly on our streets. The fact that he is asking for multiple code variances indicates that there are still too many units for a property of this size, and we would ask that that the board keep it at 25 units maximum. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Gary Pugh, followed by Lauren Gill. Good evening.
Good evening. My name is Gary Pugh. I live on Mountain Creek Drive. I've lived there since 2003. I did a bit of calculations. Our lot sizes in the neighborhood that I live in range between 6,000 and 29,000 square feet. The current density is 2.9 homes in my neighborhood. The current proposal is 37 homes, which equates to a density of 22. 22 versus 2.9 is actually a 760% increase in density. The reason I'm here is because of the density issues and the issues surrounding that density relating to parking, safety, and traffic. Currently, the traffic congestion on people trying to make a left-hand turn from Maurice onto Reno is difficult right now. With these additional units and families, making a left-hand turn is going to be next to impossible, particularly the way they have the ingress into their complex. They're going to have to make a left-hand turn onto Maurice, which is going to be next to impossible because of the backflow of people already there. at a minimum, I would expect that something like a signalized traffic intersection would have to be there somehow or another. One additional point is that the surrounding areas, the Twin Oaks and Oak Creek Canyon neighborhoods are going to end up having people go through their neighborhood, and those people have a lot of children running around on the streets and the sidewalks. It's going to be much more hazardous for those people.
Thank you, sir. Lauren Gill, followed by Leanne Tapper. And folks, after you make your public comments, if you'd stick around, you'll get a chance, we'll have the chance to ask staff and then interact with some of the concerns you've raised so we can get feedback. So please stick around. Good evening, ma'am.
Good evening. My name is Lauren Gill. I live in Newbury Park, where, as across the entire city of Thousand Oaks, we have an urgent need for housing, and in particular for affordable housing. We're fortunate in Newbury Park to have an unused parcel that's in walking distance of schools, shopping, and services, and a developer ready to erect the housing that we need. The part of this proposal that interests me the most is the apartments. If you are a proponent of home ownership, then you should be an advocate for apartments. Apartments are an essential part of the housing equation. When I was a young adult just beginning my career, I couldn't possibly have jumped straight into owning a condo, townhouse, or starter home. I rented apartments until I was financially able to afford a down payment and take on a mortgage. Those same constraints in the housing market exist today, and not just for young people. I'd like to ask the developer to consider designating more units for very low or moderate income folks. 5 is 5 more than 0, but the need is so intense. Can you do better than 5? I urge the council to move this project forward for much needed housing at the parcel adjacent to Albertsons in Newbury Park, and I look forward to welcoming new neighbors. Thank you.
Thank you, Lauren. Everybody was kind. Let's keep it that way. Civility. Leanne Tapper, followed by Chris Henson. Hello.
Hi, good evening.
Good evening.
Good evening, Mayor McCoy, City Council members, and staff. I'm here this evening to speak out against the Cohen Family Partnership residential project at 3801 Maurice Drive. The last meeting regarding this issue on May 21st, you voted not to greenlight this project. It was deemed too high density, and you asked Mr. Cohen to significantly reduce the scale of the project. He did not heed your instructions. His current plans for 37 units is still 3 stories tall and will not match the current density or aesthetic of the neighborhood. I realize that Governor Newsom recently passed Senate Bill 330, putting pressure on California cities for more affordable housing. And I also know that you recently passed plans for 210 apartments and a hotel at the old Timber School location on Newberry Road. I thought we were a city in favor of slow growth. Again, I'm submitting to you, I emailed this to you all today, my petition is now up to 539 local residents that are still opposed to these plans. One petitioner named Julie Pound from Newbury Park wrote, "A 3-story building will not fit in its surroundings, and more housing in the area will increase traffic on an already busy road." Another wrote, "We are already overcrowded. The traffic is horrible. We don't need any more development." Ms. Mavity from Newbury Park wrote, "This development will be unaffordable to most families and will lead to congestion and traffic on small streets not built for this." William Bass from Newbury Park wrote, "We do not need more cramped housing in this neighborhood or the additional traffic in the local intersections." Nikki Jones wrote, "I've lived here long enough to have seen you slowly take away our open land. The area wasn't zoned as residential. Please do not impose this on us." Finally, another petitioner wrote, "You allowed Dos Vientos and Lowe's Plaza. Our little town cannot handle any more congestion. Please do not allow this." Please listen to your constituents and do not greenlight this project. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Chris Henson, followed by Robert Fallot. Hope I got that right. Hello.
Hi. My husband and I are here to do our Penn and Teller Act again. I'm not sure if this is showing up on the reader. I spoke to a number of neighbors in going door to door, many of whom were not aware this issue was even coming back to council because the developer had not reached out to them. A lot of neighbors could not be here due to age, due to illness, or because they have school-aged children at home and can't be out this late. Another set of neighbors felt that there was no point in showing up because this is a fait accompli and their input makes no difference. But calling this project medium density is misleading and inaccurate. At 22 units per acre, that falls into the same category as high density, which is 15 plus to 30 units per acre. This is a picture of the site on the left and Brighton Lane on the right. The proposed townhomes that are 3-story will actually be 7 to 10 feet higher than this photo of Brighton Lane. Brighton Lane is already tall and looms over the sidewalks because it is so close to the street. Here's another photo showing the contrast between Brighton Lane at 25 feet high and the neighboring houses. The development we're talking about would be 7 to 10 feet higher than this and would not fit in our neighborhood. The parking spaces, the 5 proposed parking spaces in the Albertsons driveway are a real problem. We have delivery trucks going in and out all day long, in addition to smaller delivery vehicles and trucks picking up food for the needy, and that goes on all day. The other issue is we're talking about code waivers, 15% less open space in this development than the RPD guidelines for high density. 7 to 10 feet taller than the RPD guidelines, 5% more structure coverage than RPD guidelines for high density, and 3 more units than the maximum density under the RPD, even with the bonuses included. The city isn't under any obligation to grant these extra units.
You're going to have to put a caboose on it as soon as you can. Maybe one more thought.
These apartments aren't going to be subject to the new state rent control law, and there's been no commitment to affordable pricing for the rental units or the townhomes, which could be well in excess of these figures here. And then we don't know where the exceptions are going to stop to this patchwork development model. It's a slippery slope we're going down, and if we don't look at the city as a whole, our community is going to be lost one development at a time.
Thank you. We have the packet, by the way. It was extended to us. So thank you so much. Robert, you're up. And then following you will be Brandolyn Holzberger. Good evening, sir.
Good evening. I'm Bob Filio, and I live in Oak Creek Canyon on Havenside Avenue. At the May City Council meeting, Mr. Cohen stated, "We are willing to negotiate with the neighborhood." This was in response to a city council directive to Mr. Cohen to do that and to outreach. Best of my knowledge, Mr. Cohen has never met with the neighbors, but he did have his representative, Tim Gallagher, meet with the neighbors several times. I'll give you my opinion of these meetings. The purpose of these meetings was not to get input from the neighbors. The purpose of the meeting was to check the box that said, okay, City Council, we talked to all the neighbors, we conducted our outreach. Because basically, nothing significant has changed in this proposal. Sure, it was reduced from 47 to 37 units, but that's not because of outreach with the neighbors, that's because of a directive from the City Council. The apartment building was reduced from 3 stories to 2, but that's a reduction of about 3 feet in height because the former underground parking is now half above ground. So it really didn't reduce the size of that building. Now, they did remove the entrance on the Albertsons driveway. However, there still remains in the proposal 5 to 7 parking spaces along that driveway, which are just waiting for some driver to back into a big rig or to run over some child on a skateboard. Neighbor suggestions, there were many neighbor suggestions, and I sat through basically all of these meetings. Neighbors made very good suggestions. Let's limit it to townhomes. Let's put in homes like Brighton Lane. That's compatible with the neighborhood. I, quite frankly, had suggested this is an ideal place to put housing for seniors because they don't have many cars. They can walk to Albertsons, 2 drugstores, a bank, a hairdressing place, Starbucks, and even a martial arts studio.
Maybe one last thought. We're up and your time's up, so maybe one last thought.
Okay. Anyway, I asked the council, this is not compatible with our neighborhood, despite what the proposal says. And I think you should leave it the way it is, or ask Mr. Cohen to maybe look at some of the suggestions from the neighbors. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir. Brandolyn Holzberger, followed by Jeff Steinkuhler.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor,
Good
City
evening.
Council members, friends, neighbors. I'm just a pretty simple person, just an average Newbury Park mom with kids. We walk our dogs in the neighborhood. Our kids play at Cypress Park. Nightly, we walk to Albertsons, to Starbucks sometimes. We very much enjoy our low-density neighborhood. And when we're talking about density issues, and this being a medium-density project, I think we all can agree that when it's all said and done, it's not going to be a medium-density project. It's going to be a high-density project. Call it what you want, but that's what it's going to be. The entrance to the project, all of those other aspects, yes, we can do that. But the bottom line is, we're not just talking about this development. We're talking also about adopting a project, and in order to do that, we're making a general plan amendment. That's huge. And I would certainly hope that as a council representing our low-density neighborhoods, that you could find a better general plan amendment that would give us an opportunity to provide more than 2 low-income housing units and 3 low-income housing units and 2 moderate-income housing units. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Jeff, you're up, and then following you will be Melanie Rudis. Good evening, sir.
How are you? The thing I'd like to see addressed is the height of the units.
Can you use the microphone?
The height of this now is not fitting in with
Yeah,
fitting in the height of the neighborhood around it. Right now, it's zoned commercial, so you could build commercial height there. But since you're going to change the zoning to residential, it should conform to residential height limits. So it's about 8 feet at minimum too high for the neighborhood. Also, the fact if you're forced to raise the density to 37 units because of state law, I'd like you to deny the whole proposal, to put it back to commercial and leave it the way it is. You know, because if your hands are tied, 37 units is just too dense for the neighborhood. And if you can't change that by law, let's leave it as a commercial piece of property. I think that'd be more useful for the neighborhood. Also, the fact that you're building a huge project of rental units on Newbury Road, you're addressing your rental units and low-income housing in the interim. And let's see how that affects the density of the neighborhood. There's a lot of traffic in the area now when that gets built. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Melanie Rudis will be followed by Brett Boynton. Good evening.
Hi, my name is Melanie Rudis. I'm a lifetime resident here in the Conejo Valley and a Conejo Valley Unified, or a teacher in the Conejo Valley Unified School District. This is the 3rd time I've been here. I never thought I would be a regular speaker at the city council meetings, but anyway, here I am. After the last meeting, we all breathed a sigh of relief. It was agreed upon that this piece of land would hold no more than 25 units and match the surrounding neighborhood. We trusted that. We had reached a compromise. A compromise is when both sides don't get exactly what they want. The developer wants a 3-story apartment building. We want a community park or pool, thus a compromise. There's a reason that we live at the foothills of these beautiful mountains, because we don't want to live next to an apartment complex. I was very surprised to find out that the new plan was not agreed upon at the last meeting at all. It was still an apartment building, and it was not 25 units, but 37, not medium density at all. And it didn't match the surrounding neighborhood. The surrounding neighborhood is single-family detached homes with private garages. I understand the need for low-income housing, but this need for a few should not derail what has previously been agreed upon and greatly increase congestion for the majority. Keep this development within 25 units and designate a portion of those for low income. The complete disregard by the developer to not follow the guidelines previously discussed is unacceptable. It is disrespectful to the residents, the city council members, and to this process. We are all taking time away from our families to discuss a topic that I thought we had resolved. My 8-year-old daughter had her own opinions on this subject, and I told her that she is a resident, and her opinion matters just as much as anybody else's. So I submitted a letter on her behalf tonight. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Brett Boynton, followed by Mickey Reiser. Good evening, sir.
Good evening. I'm an 18-year resident of Oak Creek Canyon, and I'm going to speak. Many of our neighbors can't attend at this time. And this is for Oak Creek Canyon, Brighton Lane, Twin Oaks. Nobody wants any rental apartments at the end of that street. Nobody. Not one person. Okay, I need to say that again. Nobody wants rental apartments on the end of that street in the surrounding community. And I need to ask this question to council or to building. And
You have to address it to the council.
This is a real good one. Why would you consider building a project with more units than Brighton Lane or Twin Oaks when we all clearly know there is not enough parking or adequate traffic planning for them? Okay? That's what's already there, Brighton Lane and Twin Oaks. And you're trying to put more units on a corner that's a complete blind S-curve when you look at Reno Drive, okay? That's a disaster. And I know there's some hocus pocus about traffic planning, this and that, but that's all like a hypothesis or a head game. What's already there is too much, and we're caving in. And here's the thing. Why are we even changing the zoning? You know? Why? Let's leave it be. If he wants to change it because he can't get something in there, we're saying Brighton Lane is a beautiful development. Put that over there on the lot. But then there's this game about this apartment and this gimmick about this density stuff. That's some head fake hocus pocus gimmick to ram a high density project down our throat, and it's wrong. Okay, it is adamantly wrong. And I appeal to anyone to come walk the neighborhood with me, go door to door, and ask them about this project. I don't know if some plants are going to be brought in to talk about apartments and stuff, but nobody that lives there wants this.
Thank you, sir.
And we're trying to compromise.
I understand.
Look at Brighton Lane. Put it there. No other gimmicks.
Thank you. Thank you. Mickey Reiser, followed by John Fowler.
Good evening. Good evening, Councilman and Mayor, staff. My name is Mickey Reiser. I live on the corner of Woodland Oak and Reno. Our development is only about 20 homes. Unfortunately, mine is on the corner, and 6 of my windows in my backyard and my side look at the project. I'm 178 feet. Last time I was here, I said I was about within the 500-foot limit, and I wasn't notified. Well, I'm 178 feet from my backyard window to this project. If you looked at the map, when it was squared out, my home was in the lower left-hand corner. My issue was that I wanted to find out from 2 different residential realtors of what the value of my house is now and what it may be if we get high density in there. So I called in, and I won't mention names, Caldwell Banker and Keller Williams. I had 2 agents come and visit me, and they gave me the approximate values of my house and what houses were selling for. And then I hit them with this, and they said, well, you have to disclose that this is going on if you put your home up for sale. I says, no, I got to be honest with you, this is my retirement home, but if I had to sell it, I own a house in Brighton Lane across the way with my daughter, and I'm really curious because it affects two properties. And they said, well, quite frankly, what would happen is we don't know in a year or 2 years when it's built, or 3 years, what property values will be, but there's a good chance that the property value would not increase. I don't know if it would decrease. They both said the same thing because of the fact that there is high density going in across the street. And I just want to put that out there and let you think about it where you live. And if you ever sold your home or intended to sell your home and you were in a medium density area or a low density area as I am, and then all of a sudden it became high density, that could really affect the real estate values down the road. And I think it would affect everybody that spoke tonight. And that's all I really have to say. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir. Jackson Piper, with John Fowler. Jackson Piper will follow. I'm sorry about that, Mr. Fowler.
That's okay. Thank you. My name is John Fowler. I'm President and CEO of People's Self-Help Housing. We are a housing developer, nonprofit housing developer here on the Central Coast. We operate in 25 different jurisdictions here and have for the last almost 50 years clocking this. So housing is what we do and what we know. And I just want to came here tonight because I want to talk about the fact that we know that there's a housing crisis in California, and particularly in this city, and that we know that we have a governor who's quite serious about producing 3.5 million homes by 2025. The RENA numbers that you were asking about are doubling for jurisdictions. That's basically, we may not have them for Thousand Oaks yet, but they're going to double. And so it's a serious number, and we have to rise to that occasion. And we do know that the low and the very low numbers are the extremely hard ones to hit. So while we all want more of them, this project does include those. So every city that we operate in, I would say, and be bold, probably every city realizes we aren't making new land. And we're all trying to figure out how do we maximize densities where it makes sense. I think this project is that, and that's before you. We do know that the governor is serious. As I mentioned, there are a slew of 17 bills that came through in 2017 that said he's serious. There's a whole nother slew of bills that are coming through that are basically looking at if cities aren't going to rise to this level, there's going to be more bills, and they're going to be passing as far as trying to let applicants go directly to the state and bypass the city's jurisdictions and authorities. We need to realize that and realize that's what's coming down. So I ask you to support Measure E, allocation of these units. You're still going to have 1,100 units left. This is a good project and is an appropriate location for more housing. The project will be required to meet all the city requirements for traffic and noise and all the other things if you allow it to move forward. I hope the council will find the courage to move this project forward and other projects like this in the city and meet our local housing needs. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Jackson Piper, followed by Eric Tremblay. Good evening.
Good evening. Thank you for letting me speak. I'm a resident of the unincorporated area, but I use shops in the community. I consider myself part of this community, so I wanted to speak my mind about this. I know the community members have a lot of concerns about the issues that this might cause them, especially in that neighborhood. However, the entire region is, as you've heard, somewhere around 1 million houses or 1 million units short of where it needs to be. We're in the midst of a huge homelessness crisis, housing affordability crisis, and unfortunately, Thousand Oaks is a part of that problem. We've developed in ways that are just not sustainable for fulfilling our needs. And this is not just Thousand Oaks, this is throughout the entire Southern California region. Municipalities have just basically done the bare minimum to provide housing that was needed at the time that projects were proposed and allowed development to be cut down to an acceptable size for the community. And the net effect of this is that we are now so very deeply in a housing crisis and homelessness crisis that it will take us probably decades to recover. I'm asking the council to consider that this project, while it may not fit in with the current character of the surrounding neighborhood, is necessary to provide more housing for people that want to live in the community that may not be able to afford to now, and that the concerns about traffic, noise, while valid, are being addressed. 50 more cars on the road at any one time from this unit or this development will not really not be noticeable to anyone on the roads that are designed for thousands of cars to travel per hour. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Eric Tremblay, followed by Jennifer McLeod.
Good evening.
Good evening, sir.
If TOT, if you could just keep the projector on, I'd appreciate it. I'd just like you all to see your own words. We've been here 2 times already. We've already had a lot of the same arguments. Nothing much has changed. You all agree that it wasn't fitting for our neighborhood. These are your words. Mr. Cohen also agreed that he was willing to reduce the need for the apartment, get rid of the apartment complex. He could build his own townhomes. He said he had no issue with that. We expected that would be the case. We trusted you, we trusted him, and we were let down, at least by one party so far. And we hope that you guys will honor what we've already discussed time and time again. The community is getting worn thin at this point. The size of the building has not decreased. 3 feet is still monolithic to Councilman Engler's terms. There's not a significant change in the layout of this project. And the 2 very low density income units, I think the Timberlane project probably does a lot more benefit to this town than these 2 units will. And if he wants to I encourage him to build townhomes that have very low income. What I would like you to see, though, is the reality of the parking and the traffic issue. Directly across the street is Garden View Terrace on Lost Police Drive. They, too, have a garage. Their garage, during the week, is empty, more often than not. The residents park on the street of Lost Felice. I have seen people get almost into accidents. I've seen children almost hit every day. This is directly across the street. This is not good for our community. This particular project is not good for us. I hope you all received the email that I sent you today and had a chance to at least review it. I understand it's pretty lengthy, and I appreciate it if you did. A lot of my concerns were raised there. I'm trying to summarize them because I didn't get a lot of response. But we've spoken out. We're willing to come to a compromise. We're willing to work, but we're not being shown that. We've been shown that we're not being regarded, we're being disregarded, and that we're just going to get walked all over, and that's not appropriate. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Tremblay. And by the way, we do get your emails. We do read them. Too many to respond to, but we do read them, so thank you for sending them. Jennifer McLeod, followed by Darren Hansen. Hello.
Hi, I am a homeowner in the Oak Creek Canyon neighborhood, representing several other neighbors that couldn't attend tonight. We are all strongly opposed to this project. It's not easy to come out to all these meetings. Many of us work or have children at home. I'm a mother of 6. But it is very important for you to know that we are all against this. I have not talked to anyone in my neighborhood that is in favor of the zoning of this lot being changed to medium or high density residential. This is not an appropriate space or location for that. Thousand Oaks is known and appreciated for its open space and slow, smart growth. This project is not smart. At a previous neighborhood meeting I attended, Mr. Gallagher was made aware of the strong opposition. He made friendly suggestions, such as rather than all of us speak, we should organize one spokesperson to speak for all of us. He doesn't want you to realize that everyone in our neighborhood is against this project. Before purchasing my home, I did a lot of research into the neighborhood and area. We are aware of the empty lot and that it could be commercially developed one day. I want you to know that if I knew this proposed project was a possibility, I would not have bought a house in the neighborhood. I can't afford to purchase a lot like Mr. Cohen has in his possession, but if I did, I would never expect the city council to favor my individual wishes over all the neighbors opposed. That is not fair. Hundreds of neighbors made investments of their own. How is it fair to favor one individual's interests while ignoring the hundreds of neighbors that are against it? It's not fair. Please do not approve this project. Please listen to the hundreds of neighbors and side with us. We voted for you. So we really hope you will vote with us. I love living here. I love my neighborhood. I love this community. And I love that when times are tough, we stand strong together. Thank you for your time and for all that you do in the best interest of our beautiful community and those that choose to live in it. Thank you.
Thank you. Darren Hansen, followed by Bob Martinich. Hello, sir.
Good evening. My name is Darren Hansen. I live at 4112 Churchill Drive, just around the corner of this site. You know, I do work for an affordable housing developer. That's what I do for a living. And we all agree that we need more housing, but not here. This location makes no sense, and there's no justification to put high density at this location. Most residents agree that the site is suitable for residential. We've been saying that over and over and over again. Hundreds and hundreds of people are against this. If this passes here and it goes to Planning Commission, I'm telling you, this place is going to be full of hundreds of people. The other thing is that 3 stories, it's not compatible. It's not compatible with the neighborhood at all. So Brighton Lane density is 7.5 units to the acre, so round it up to 8. If he were to propose that with the density bonus of 35%, which I agree with, we'll give him 18 units, which is compatible with the neighborhood. You've heard tonight people talking about 25 units. I think that's still a little bit too high. But what he's proposing now, it doesn't make any sense. There are so many sites in this city that are compatible for this type of development. There's many. To take it and shove it into this neighborhood doesn't make any sense. It really doesn't. And the thing is that, you know, everybody understands that this developer has the ability to develop his site, and we all agree to that. But he doesn't live here. He doesn't care. He owns the property, but he doesn't live here. He doesn't have to drive by it every day. So the thing is that, you know, I hope that you listen to the community, because I will tell you, you know, if it does get approved to move forward, you will see this place will be full. Thanks.
Thank you, sir. Bob Martinich, you're up next. Good evening, sir.
Hey, good evening. Thanks
You
a
can
lot.
use that one.
No, big one?
Yeah, you're good to go.
It's a minor miracle to get me here tonight, I'll tell you that. The World Series is on. The NBA is just starting tonight. I'd much rather be there.
Me too.
A lot of my coworkers, I think, feel the same way about this issue, and can't believe how many people, my neighbors, also feel the same way. I graduated from T.O. High in 1991, moved away up until a year ago, and we thoughtfully chose to live where we do now and where we strive. We understood, we did our research, we knew that was a commercial lot, and we weren't aware that this was going to be made into high-density housing. I can't give you any more insights as to what else that you've heard. The parking's going to be an issue, traffic, but these are smart people here. So the people that you serve, you don't serve a developer. You serve your neighbors, the people of this community. So I just ask you to have the courage to listen to us, the people that are most impacted, and to do the right thing.
Thank you, sir. Staff responds to the public comments, and that concluded our public comments. So if you would respond to some of their concerns that you listed, noted.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor. A few items. Again, I mean, the project, as everybody recognizes, is commercial today. It will be developed someday in some form. As I've spoken to already, a residential project would generate significantly less traffic. That is a common concern, and staff understands that. But a residential project would actually result in less traffic than a commercial use. And the applicant, the property owner, could easily submit a variety of commercial projects, and as long as they meet height and setback requirements, it's a very simple process to go forward with that. which would generate more traffic. A signal at Maurice and Reno is not warranted today based on traffic analyses, but that would, if this project were to go forward, that will be evaluated as part of the environmental document as well. The topic of density bonus. The density bonus, state law, it does not change the underlying land use. The land use is proposed to be medium density. Staff has recognized and stated explicitly in the staff report the ultimate density of 22 units per acre. That is a function of those three numbers that I described earlier. The medium density residential, density bonus, and the 3 additional units requested by the applicant, 2 of which are for moderate income residents. And I think that those were the primary comments that I had. That's it. Thank you.
All right. We're going to hear a rebuttal. I'm sorry. Oh, yeah. Any questions for the staff? No? All right. We'll get the rebuttal then. No, that doesn't work that way. Sorry. We've gone through the whole process. It's a rebuttal time.
Thank you, Mayor McCoy, council members. I just have 5 quick points. First of all, there was never been a previous representation by Mr. Cohen that the project would only be 25 units. I want to make that clear. Number 2, we must honor the state law. That is the purpose of the density bonus law. 3, there's a great need for housing. You've heard from people that work in that industry, and you guys hear it every day from the state of California. And this housing needs to be there for all incomes. Number 4, the plan transitions housing towards the shopping center. We've got medium density across the street at Brighton Lane. The first units within this project, the townhomes, it's the same product type. And you move into the back of the property, we've got 27 apartment units, all within the medium density range. Last point, the city has limited land for housing, and we view, and I think staff has indicated, this is an appropriate place to put housing. I've got nothing further available for questions.
Any questions from the council? No. All right, thank you.
Thank you.
Oh, wait. Hang on. Oh, no. Okay, for staff. Go ahead, Councilmember Vidal-Pena.
Thank you. Thank you, Mayor McCoy. I have a couple of questions. First of all, the request tonight is to allow a certain number of units from the Measure E Bank toward this particular proposal, and also concurrently processing a general plan amendment, correct?
Correct. And if I could just clarify one point I should have mentioned a moment ago. In the recommendation in the staff report, I just want to make it clear that the primary question before City Council tonight is allocation of the 25 units of residential capacity. The recommendation does lead off saying approve a residential project. You're not approving a residential project tonight. You would be allocating units to this project, the 25 Measure E units, for a project as currently proposed that is 37 units. If you did that, then you would initiate the general plan amendment from commercial to medium density. So the primary action tonight is allocation of units, and then that triggers the initiation of the GPA.
Correct. And so if we were to allocate 25 units from the Measure E Bank for this particular project, doesn't necessarily mean that the applicant would indeed take advantage of a state density bonus.
That's correct.
We've had a project on Teal Boulevard, 2109 or 2901, I forget which one, at the corner of Conejo School Road and Teal Boulevard, where the council allocated dozens of units, and I believe they were seeking a state density bonus. You know which one I'm talking about? 92 units, I think.
Yes, I do recall.
219, okay. 2219.
It's
And that project was green-lighted in terms of the units, but it never came to fruition.
That's correct. And on the point of density bonus, an applicant that provides a certain number of affordable units is entitled to up to, in this case, 35% density bonus. They can include that, they can include it in their project or not. It's up to the applicant. We have had projects which have included affordable units that did not include the density bonus.
Okay, thank you.
Councilmember Jones?
Yeah. Mr. Town, the action here before us is twofold. This is what I think we used to call a red light, green light hearing. In other words, if we give the green light, then they are able to pursue the zone change, or they would automatically get the zone change. Is that it?
No. The action tonight would simply be allowing the applicant to proceed through the process. It does not guarantee any changes.
And it does not guarantee any particular density.
The action tonight would be medium density, to initiate the medium density residential, and you're allocating 25 units to the project. That is the maximum number of units that could be developed under medium density residential, and the 35% density bonus, the 9 units, is the maximum amount of density bonus that the applicant could seek under state law. But right now, it's a concept that is before you simply in terms of, like you said, red light, green light.
Okay. So we would still be free if we did that tonight, that we could still regulate the final project. In other words, we could decide exactly how many units that we would allow for that corner. Is that right?
The final decision on this project is entirely up to the City Council. In other words, at the end of the process, however it finally turns out, you could approve it or not. And that is your prerogative, because what is being requested is a change in general plan, a change in zoning, and that is within your purview.
Well, if this is so tentative, what is the purpose of having such a specific plan before us tonight? It gives the impression to the layperson or whatever neophyte person I'm talking about that we're actually, if we go forward, we would actually be approving 37 units. Right. It might be different, right?
It could be different.
Yeah.
The reason, and there are pros and cons to both approaches. If there were no pre-screening stuff like what we have tonight, the City Council would not see the project, quote unquote, until the very end of the process. You wouldn't have an opportunity to weigh in. The public wouldn't have an opportunity to weigh in early on. The intent of this step is to enable very early input on a concept so that everybody has a sense of what's being proposed, and then a threshold decision could be made whether it should go forward or not.
I think it's a little unclear to a lot of the people that are speaking tonight that we are going to approve the project as it is before us simultaneously with giving the ability for them to seek the zone change, and that is not the case.
That is not the case, and if I could just go back to this image that's up again tonight, it's the pre-screen step. If council were to allow the project to go forward, it still has to go through those 5 remaining steps, and your action tonight, if you were to allow it to go forward, does not denote final action to approve the project.
In other words, we could still regulate the number of units, we could regulate the height of the buildings. We could.
Tonight you're looking at essentially maximums.
Yeah.
In other words, medium density is a range up to 15 units. The density bonus is up to 35%. The applicant is entitled to request that, and we are obligated to consider it.
You know, this is a minor thing, but I wish you wouldn't. I know this is the rule to call it medium density. It's really high density. And I think we ought to, rather than say it's medium density with bonuses, I think in reality, if this project were approved exactly the way it is now, it would be 22 units per acre, which is high density. I think it would be better to call it high density with bonuses. That was not supposed to be an applause line, by the way. Thank you.
Well, you exited after they clapped. Councilmember Badilla Peña.
Thank you, Mayor McCoy. And you are correct, Mr. Jones. Smith. Okay. I do recall a project, 299 Thousand Oaks Boulevard, which was already high density. It's 142 units on 3 acres. It was considered high density, but the applicant was entitled to a state density bonus. We could not deny that. So it turned from a high density project into what I called an excessive density project. But it is still considered, according to our general plan and zoning, high density. This would basically be similar. It's medium density that is being proposed with a state density bonus. Yes, it goes beyond that, but again, that is state law, which we cannot deny. So I wish it were different, but that's the way it is, unfortunately. Say we were to greenlight, Mr. Town, this project, we're not greenlighting the project, which is the numbers, 25. Mr. Cohan, the developer, would also have the luxury or flexibility, so to speak, to just say, you know what, I'm going to go ahead with commercial anyway. Would that be an option, hypothetically speaking?
Yes.
Okay. So in other words, really tonight nothing is etched in stone. It is a pre-screening of a proposal of medium density.
That's correct.
With or without a state density bonus. Okay.
Mayor McCoy, if I could just clarify the discussion regarding medium and high density residential. Councilmember Claudia Bildo Pena discussed the fact of state law, state density bonus law. Whenever any applicant comes to the city and requests a housing project, let's say that this project was already identified as medium density residential and the applicant did not need a general plan amendment. At any given time, that applicant can build the 25 units and then ask for, and we are legally obligated to give them a density bonus if they provide affordable housing. And that's how it is on every single piece of property in the city of Thousand Oaks. It's actually on every single piece of property in the state of California. What the state legislature has done over the years is they have they're trying to compel more affordable housing to be built. The city cannot force a developer to put affordable housing on the property, but yet cities are held accountable for lack of affordable housing in their cities. So state has passed certain laws. This is just one of many, many housing laws that have been passed over the years. And if you are interested in learning more about housing laws and housing bills, I highly suggest you look at just what legislature passed over this last year and what they're contemplating passing over the next year, because it's much more than just the state density bonus law. This has been on the books for how many years? 20, at least 20 years. Oh, thank you. I think you know. So at least 20 years. So this is kind of what, I know that this is kind of shocking to the residents, to you all, because you probably, this is the first time you've heard about it, but this is kind of like commonplace for city staff members who have to process projects throughout the city. So if I have a piece of property that's low density, and I build affordable housing, I'm entitled to a density bonus that might elevate it above that low density range under the general plan. By law, The state density bonus law does not recognize land use designations. And in fact, cities are not allowed to consider that as a basis to deny it. In other words, we can't deny a project because we conclude that it is incompatible or inconsistent with our zoning code or our general plan. The city council has no discretion on that. In addition to state density bonus laws, we're required to do other things as well if the developer asks. Those are called development incentives. So when we're talking about any types of waivers, we're actually legally obligated to provide a number of waivers or changes from our development code in order to incentivize that project to go forward for more affordable housing. We're also required, if we are requested, to reduce the parking requirements if a developer asks that as well. That's not being asked in this case, and in fact, the applicant is proposing more parking spaces than even under traditional parking regulations. So I know that there's a lot of discussion with respect to what medium density is, but if on any piece of property, if the city council didn't even consider, and in fact, before this pre-screen would have happened, what would have happened is a developer would say, we're interested in putting medium density residential on this property, and we are requesting the city council to concurrently allow us to process it. There'd be no plans, there would just be a request in writing to do that. We would take it to the city council would consider it and say, medium density makes sense on this property. Maybe that's what they would say, and they would greenlight it. And then during the process, those 4 subsequent steps that the Community Development Director, Mr. Town, discussed, during those 4 subsequent steps, if the applicant says, hey, I want to build the maximum amount under medium density, which is 25 units, and I'm going to build affordable housing, and I get a density bonus under that, then ultimately we would be in the same place. And I hope that makes sense to everybody. I get the frustration. I just want to make sure that everybody understands when we're talking about density designations, it's nothing that the city council is making up. It's nothing that staff is making up. It's actually mandated by our state legislation. Actually, SB 330 is just one of the most recent ones that was adopted. Actually, there's so many that I could talk about for hours. Yeah, SB 330 is what SB 330 does is it prohibits cities from reducing density beyond below what the density designation is. We're actually legally prohibited from doing that now, without finding an alternative site for that housing, for that additional housing that's needed. That's just one of the things. One of the pieces of legislation that was pending last year, and it was killed, but it's going to be resurrected next year, is a proposal to allow 4 plexes on every single family lot in the state of California. That's just some of the housing legislation that is being discussed because of the need for housing in general in the city.
Council members, any other questions? Well, I guess we don't have a motion. Well, Councilmember Villalpena.
Thank you, Mayor McCoy. Thank you, Ms. Noonan, for explaining the challenges that we're facing, all cities in California are facing regarding housing. It is extremely frustrating having to plead with our state legislators and to ask for veto. We have consistently lobbied the governor and state legislators to not pass certain bills such as SB 330, which take away all local control. They're pushing now for applications without a public hearing. And that is unfortunately the way that we are headed in California. The governor wants to put in 3.5 million units in California, which I think is completely unrealistic. Thousand Oaks is pretty much built out. We don't have room for 3,500 units. I don't know how the state expects us to make room for 3,500 units in the city of Thousand Oaks. I have no idea. It is complete overreach. Complete overreach. That said, we have a proposal before us that's requesting 25 units from our Measure E Bank. Mr. Cohan, you have the flexibility of keeping commercial, keeping it at 25 units, asking for a state density bonus. It is your right to do that. And given the opposition to high density, we asked for medium density. This is what you delivered. We desperately need very low-income housing. We need housing for kindergarten teachers. Salary range, $34,000 a year. This is for the Conejo Valley Unified School District, making up to about $80,000. Elementary school teacher, the same. Average salary, $68,000. Deputy for Ventura County Sheriff's Department and the Fire Department, per household, $80,000 a year. That is the kind of housing that we need. And these are the teachers for Conejo Valley Unified School District and the firefighters for the Ventura County Fire Department. This is how much they make. This is how much they make. This is the population for whom we need to provide housing, workforce housing. And I can't say no to residential development. As I sit here, I would like to make a motion to move forward with the 25 units from the Measure E Bank, but I will leave it up to you to see whether you will leave it at 25 units or decide after all to provide affordable housing. The residents don't want affordable housing, or they want affordable housing within the 25 units. So I will leave that up to you. This is just a pre-screening, but my motion would be to go ahead with staff recommendation to allocate 25 units from the Measure E Bank.
Thank you, Councilmember. Mayor Pro Tem Adam.
Thank you, Mayor. I did want to address a couple of things I heard from the audience. Your input is being heard. I guarantee you. That's why we have this pre-screening process. We adopted it a few years ago. Before that, we did not have a pre-screening process. The projects would come to the staff, they go to the Planning Commission, and then finally end up at the council if there was a zone change or whatever. And there was really no input from the council prior to that, and very little from the citizenry. This pre-screening process was set up specifically so the council and you could have input on these projects before they started going through the process. I think that's very sensible, and we've been hearing you, and this project has gone through a number of different iterations based on your concerns and based on our concerns. And I have to make a general remark here. Somebody said that we're not a slow-growth city. We're a slow-growth city. Let me assure you, over the last 5 years, this city has built 400 units of housing. That's 80 units per year. That's less than 1% of our housing stock. By any measure, that's slow growth. In fact, it's infinitesimal growth. So please, don't mischaracterize the direction of this council. We're all of us here are concerned about growth. We understand the quality of life. We all live here. But look at the numbers. We're a slow growth city, and I'm sure we're going to maintain that. And one thing did occur to me, this number 25 versus 37, the difference is 12 units. I know there's a big concern about traffic. Those 12 extra units, whether they come to fruition or not, you're talking maybe another 20 cars, 25 cars for those 12 units? No? 30? Anyway, point being, hard to say how many cars are going to be, but I can't imagine that number of cars would be that fatally impactful to the neighborhood. But again, that'll work itself out, once we get through this pre-screening process. You'll still have chance for input, and the project can still go through different iterations. But, other than that, it checks a lot of boxes. The traffic will be less than commercial. It's medium density. I know that's subject to debate, but it really is. They've scaled down the massing. They brought down the heights. The private road stays private. The circulation's better. They've addressed a lot of the concerns. So, I understand where you're at with this thing, but I think that there's enough merit here to grant the 25 units and take it back to staff and see where we go from here. And again, it's got to come back to staff, then it's got to go to Planning Commission, then go back to us again. So there's a lot of filters still for this thing.
Councilmember Engler.
Thank you, Mayor. Thanks to everybody who came out tonight. We appreciate the input. I think I spoke to a couple of people earlier that we do appreciate people speaking to us and letting us know what you're thinking. That said, I think several people have said that they would just prefer to remain commercial. In our town right now, we have a plethora of vacant commercial. Commercial is not needed in our community right now. I think the owner of the property, the applicant, does have the right to put commercial in there. I think we would all agree that commercial is probably not the right use for that property anymore. It will have more traffic to the neighborhood, more noise, more annoyances, and it's not needed. What is needed in town is some housing. Housing of all types, apartments and townhomes, and this is a project that brings both of those to us. In terms of what the applicant has come to everybody and talked to us and talked to, apparently not to everybody, but to as many people as he could in the neighborhood, and everybody asked for a smaller project. He has done that. He came back with 25% fewer homes, which is substantially less impact. I would agree with many of you, though, that the apartment property is still too massive for that location. I would encourage, and this is, this pre-screen is for us as council members, for you as the public, to give feedback to the developer, and I would encourage him to look at the size of the apartment and do something to mitigate the imposing nature of it. Now, granted, it is blocking a equally imposing blank wall, but I think that the unit needs to have a little bit of work done to reduce its impact visually on the neighborhood. And I would encourage the applicant to do that. But I think I agree with Councilman Adam, and it does check some boxes. They did come back with a smaller project with a lower density, base density at least, and they have invoked the density bonus for low-income housing, but it also provides that low-income and very low-income option in our housing mix that will allow, as one of the speakers said, allows people to have an entry into our community via these apartments.
Councilmember Jones.
Yes, Mr. Mayor. I really appreciate everybody coming out tonight. I know that neighborhood very well. I've walked it several times running for office, sometimes successfully, sometimes not. And I recently walked that corner and noted, I think there is one advantage you have, and that is you have a wide driveway. Whatever is built in this project to the westerly of the corner, and an array of trees just to the west of that, which should provide some screening, and we didn't talk about noise tonight, so. But I think my general impression is I think we can still come to some agreement that would satisfy everybody. The developer has a right to develop his property, and I think he wants to be a good neighbor. I still think it's a little dense. I agree with what Mr. Engler just said, that it seems to me that that's a little too many apartments, but then I hear my good seatmate here, Mr. Adam, talking about the need for affordable housing. And I won't go through the litany of how long I've been here and what housing cost then, but in those days, the mailman and the teacher and the cop and the so-and-so could all afford to buy a house on a low-density lot. That's not, somebody said they're not making any more land. I mean, we are in a tough place here. We're trying to not be doing anything that would be offensive to the neighbors, but at the same time, we have a commercial lot here, and I don't think you would expect to have low-density housing on a major street like Reno Road. So there's going to have to be some final number somewhere between that. So I appreciate your coming down. Please don't take this as a slap in the face or something. What we want to do is to try to work out a final project that will be as compatible as possible with the neighborhood. We'll try to meet as many needs as possible. But at the same time, give the developer a chance to develop that property. So I intend to support the motion. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilmember. We have a motion, but before we prepare the vote, I just want to share with everybody, I do not like the state's usurping of our autonomy as a city. I'm frustrated by this. I think this bonus by the state and the requirements by the state are overreaching. I think the housing shortage in California is the failure of state government. I think a state like California that has the 5th largest GDP, that leads the nation in poverty and homelessness, is unconscionable. I have no idea how a one-party system state can pull that off and ruin this state. And they're forcing it on us. And you guys want to be at this, watching the World Series? So do I, on a night like this. You need the wisdom of Solomon, because every one of your concerns is valid. And of the 5 that sit here, I'm the only one who shops in that area, and I can declare to you, I agree with you, that that is a nightmare when it comes to traffic. I don't like it. But in the same regard, you have an individual who owns that piece of property, and as Councilmember Adam pointed out, or excuse me, Councilmember Jones, he has the right to develop it. We don't need commercial. And with these mandates, we're being forced to come up with low-income and moderate-income housing. That's the reality. If it's left empty, I can foresee the future where the state comes in and the developer is given a green light by the state to put whatever he wants there. So this process right now for us, we are not approving this project. This is a pre-screening to look at it and say, and if you take time away from your family to come down here, but this is local government. This affects us. So I'm glad you're here. That's how we operate. And keep coming down and keep participating in the process. And things will be a lot more the way you like it, the more you participate. We've been deeply moved by your comments. Now we're going to allocate, as I can see by the majority in the comments, we're going to allocate, at least for Measure E, the ability for this developer to put together a proposal that's going to go through 4 other processes where every one of your public comments will have a say in this project. Don't be discouraged tonight because you didn't get everything you wanted. But also, please, don't vilify us and say we're doing a 3-card Monte and switching everything on you. Understand that this is a state mandate. When we said 25, we meant 25. It's the state that does this. Keep coming back. Keep telling us what it is that you feel as though is necessary. And in this process, community is common unity. And so I'm grateful that you're here. We've been moved by what you've had to say. And the emails and the petitions and all those things have a sway on us. But in the same regard, we're looking at a city that is going to be mandated by the state to have low-income housing. That's one of the main reasons why we're doing a general plan update, to try to avoid the state usurping all of our open territory and obliterating us. This is a tough job. You're welcome to it for $1,750 a month. I'd rather go watch the World Series on a night like this. But I want to say thank you, as Councilmember Jones did and the other council members. We're grateful you're here. Your input means a lot to us, and we're moved by it. But with that, we are still going to allow this to go through the pre-screening, and every input through this process is going to be of critical importance. So don't give up. Stay with us on this. And thank you all for coming out tonight. Madam Clerk, will you prepare the vote, please?
The motion carries 5-0.
That brings us to item 10. We have no committee or commission board reports. City Council successor agency, nothing. Item 12. Folks, thanks for coming out, and the best you can, if you could exit quietly. We've got a couple more items of business that we have to attend to. Follow-up reports on meetings, conferences attended by council members. Item 12, that'll be presented by Council Member Engler and Council Member Jones. You went to the League of California Cities. You want to bat lead off, Council Member?
Yep, I'd be happy to. Thank you, Mayor. Yes, and thank you to the citizens for sending both Councilmember Jones and I down to the California League of Cities, along with several of our colleagues here in staff. League of Cities is a excellent place for us to learn the latest of what is going on in government and approaches that other people are taking to tackle problems that are common throughout the nation as well as the state. So thank you for that. I just wanted to share a couple of things that I brought away really quickly, then I'll turn it over to Councilman Jones. At one of the keynote speakers was spoke very elucidating on how millennials are now becoming the dominant force within the community. Those of us who are baby boomers are going away, we're leaving the workforce, and more millennials are coming into the community. And so things will change as that group comes through. And part of, we talked about housing all night, part of housing is going to be crafted to meet the desires of that group of the population as well. There was also quite a few discussions on homelessness, as you can well imagine, and the cost of homelessness and the need for wraparound services to take some of those people off the street. So with that, I think Councilmember Jones, if you have any other comments.
Yeah, I was not able to attend very many meetings, but the ones that particularly impressed me, well, I want to save the very terrific meeting or presentation by Andy Fox and Jeff Dean and Ingrid about the events immediately following the election a year ago. But I'll save that for just a moment. The other one that really impressed me was the census that is coming up, and it is really absolutely vital that we get accurate counts in the census. They're already starting to organize. They're going to do a lot of it online for people that have computers. They're having people that go door to door in areas where people do not have access to computers, or where there is more than one dwelling unit on a certain lot. In other words, it's rather complicated, and it really touches on what we just are through talking about affordable housing, and that is that because of the need for housing, especially for service people that actually work in this city, they're living in all sorts of places, and it's going to be hard. Plus, for a while, they tried to have a citizenship question, which obviously would have made it very difficult to count any undocumented aliens. That question was withdrawn, as we found out at the meeting, or at least as I found out. But we have a need. There are 5, I don't have all the different areas of grants that are available, but 5 of our 15 cabinet positions in our United States government, housing and urban development, I forget all the different ones, labor is involved, there are like 5, that all have grants that are available to Thousand Oaks. And because we are a donor area, California, we send far more money to Washington, D.C. than we get back in goods and services and grants and so forth. That it is absolutely vital that we have a good count. So anything we can do to help that out is very advisable and vital for us. But I don't have the words to express the feelings I had sitting in the audience with the description of all of the activities and all of the late nights and everything that our staff and others went through as a reaction to the shooting. I left that night on a plane the day after the election, or the following morning, and I found out about all this when I got to Munich, Germany. I had promised my wife a trip down the Danube River. And so I didn't know about what happened. It was really an eye-opener to hear Andy and Jeff and Ingrid describe all the things that were done, and I can't compliment them enough, and I'm so proud to be part of this community and this city and all of our districts, the school district, the park district, as well as the city, because all of you went through that, and I don't know how a community could have done a better job from what I can observe. As Andy pointed out, it sort of tainted our reputation as the safest city in the United States for our size, which we did win many times. But I think we deserve a medal for the best reaction, the best coping with what did happen. And I think that we still deserve not only the safest city, but the most responsive city in the United States. And words cannot express how grateful I am for all that was done. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilmember. Follow-up from our city manager. Any items? Assistant City Manager.
Yes, thank you, Mayor. The next regularly scheduled meeting of the City Council will be on Tuesday, November 5th. We have a public hearing for building code update and the hemp moratorium. And then we will also have a department report on the campus master plan.
Ms. Noonan, would you like to announce a closed session?
Yes, thank you, Mayor McCoy. We have one closed session. This is conference with real property negotiators on various properties located on Willow Lane and Caneo School Road as set forth in the agenda. It's pursuant to Government Code Section 54956.8. It is unlikely I will have anything to report.
Thank you, Ms. Noonan. Tonight, we are going to adjourn in memory of James Bruce Snyder, and I'm so grateful that you guys were patient. The family's here tonight, and thank you for being here. So if you would bear with me as I read. We're adjourning tonight's City Council meeting in memory of James Bruce Snyder, who passed away July 13th. Jim was a member of the city family, having worked as an employee for 20 years. He was a native son of the Conejo Valley along with his family, arriving in 1955. In 1997, he began his career with the City of Thousand Oaks as street maintenance, worker 1 in the Public Works Department. In 1998, he was promoted to street maintenance worker 2, and in 2006, Jim moved from Municipal Service Center to City Hall as a construction inspector. Jim was a key member of the city's construction inspection team and played a significant role on numerous projects throughout the city, including Miller Ranch, many mansions, Thousand Oaks Boulevard undergrounding, and Regency Center redevelopment. Jim was an Army veteran and very proud of his son, who honorably served in the Army as well. Jim enjoyed spending time with his family and was a big fan of the Dodgers and the Los Angeles Rams. Jim will be deeply missed by family, many friends, and his city co-workers, and I am sorry for your loss to the family, but it's an honor tonight to remember him and to adjourn this meeting in his memory. God bless you guys, and good night, everybody.